Good morning or afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar presentation today on how Agentic AI is changing API testing. Today, we're very excited to be talking about Agentic AI and the impact in the QA space. To begin, let's dive into some quick intros. My name is Jamie Motherall. I'm a product marketing manager and API and functional testing specialist here at Parasoft. I've been with Parasoft for about 8 years now. Actually started working specifically with our customers on the government and military side, helping them to use our tools to solve their testing challenges. Now I am helping to evangelize Parasoft, and I travel to a lot of different conferences. I just recently did a talk actually at API Days New York last month, great conference there. And today I'm very excited to be talking about Agentic AI and interviewing one of our technical experts, which is Wilhelm Haker, sitting here next to me. Wilhelm, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Wilhelm Haker. I'm the Director of Solution Engineering, focused on our cloud, web, API microservices focused products, and looking forward to talking about Agentic AI today and how that affects API testing.
Wonderful. Well, I'm very happy to have you join us. Now, we do have a quick agenda to go over. We're keeping things pretty simple today. So we're going to start off with some expert discussion around API testing, Agentic AI, and its impact on QA teams. Then we're going to go into a technical demonstration. So Wilhelm is going to be showing us an example using SOAtest's new AI assistant that leverages Agentic AI to generate API scenario tests, complete with test data and auto parameterization. So we're going to see all of that in action. Then we're probably going to go back to that expert discussion. We'll wrap it up as far as talking a little bit deeper about the impact of this on QA teams, and then we'll dive into some live Q&A. Now, keep in mind at any point throughout today's presentation, feel free to pop any questions that you have into the Q&A box because we will start to address those at the end. So without further ado, let's dive in. So Wilhelm, the first thing I think we want to talk about here, I know this is about Agentic AI, but to really set the stage, I'd like to dive a little bit into kind of the testing challenges. So, there's a lot of common API testing challenges around scaling, around adoption. Maybe you can break that down for us so that we can understand the space and understand the value of AI a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely. So the key barriers to API testing have always been the technical nature of APIs as well as the lack of a user interface. And from a testing perspective, it asks the tester to have a deeper technical knowledge, both from kind of the protocol and messaging level, but also how the system is architected. And so no-code API testing tools like Parasoft SOAtest, they lower the bar in being able to automate API tests, right, without having any coding background. But that doesn't fully address the need for testers to have a better architectural understanding of the system that they're testing. And so, right, needing to kind of take their functional requirements and translate that over to the API layer.
Yeah, so I can see how that is a real challenge for a lot of testers because a lot of testers are really familiar with the mouse and keyboard UI testing techniques. So there's really this gap that needs to be bridged as far as to understand how the testing they're used to is kind of translating to those API layers.
Exactly. So, one common thread to think about is test data. So, for example, you fill out a form, you select some options, you click submit, and then you verify some outcome. When you do that, that workflow triggers a variety of back-end APIs where the same data gets exchanged. So when testing APIs, testers need to think about how those APIs support the user journeys that they're testing, and what kind of data to test with, how that data affects the system from the back end. And this is where AI with natural language can play a role in making it easier for testers to create meaningful API tests that verify the behavior of their system, sort of as that translation point between the testing requirements they have and how to implement those tests when dealing with APIs.
It sounds like there's so many steps to API testing, which means at the end of the day, there's so many opportunities where AI can be applied to help. So at this point, why don't we start to define and go into a little bit more of the agentic side? That's what we're talking about today. So agentic AI, Wilhelm, can you give us just a brief intro onto what agentic AI is?
Sure. So agentic AI is about giving an AI a complex task or goal and having it reason through kind of multiple steps before acting.
Okay. And when it comes down to API testing, you describe a challenge in translating these complex testing requirements into API tests. So let's see that workflow more visually. Agentic AI workflow starts with a natural language prompt, and then the AI interprets the goal, and then it works with a specialized agent to reason through a workflow, hence agentic AI. That workflow then gets validated by the human and then is executed.
And from an API testing perspective, things start with your service definition and a prompt describing the requirements you want to be tested. The AI adds the service definition to its context and reads the prompt to understand what kind of tests you want it to create. Then it starts working with specialized agents that work on both constructing the test scenarios and the test data. From there, it presents a summary of what it wants to do, and you have an opportunity to make corrections and conversationally give it more information until it presents a plan that you're happy with. And after accepting that plan, it goes to work and creates multi-step API test scenarios with test data that map back to your business requirements.
Now, this sounds very impressive. I think it's going to be even more impressive to see it in action. So at this point, we're going to turn on over to our technical demonstration.
Okay, let's get started. So first, I'm going to be showing you the Parasoft demo app. This is our logistics application that we use for demos. It's got categories, it's got items, a cart, whole order workflow. So you can expect that there would be some testing requirements for this application centered around the whole ordering process. This application is also built on top of APIs. So we've got a Swagger page that defines the REST API endpoints. We've got the OpenAPI service definition, which I will be using when I prompt the AI assistant. So we'll be jumping into Parasoft SOAtest right here and using the AI assistant chat window to have a conversation with AI to help us build out some scenarios. But first, I wanted to spend a minute talking about the LLM provider settings. So SOAtest will have an integration with LLM. So in this case, I'm connecting to OpenAI. You can also go to Azure OpenAI or other LLM providers. You may have one that you deploy on-prem. We've tested with Google Gemini, for example, as well. And in this case, I'm using GPT-4.1. And some things to note is you'll want an LLM that has a chat completions endpoint that's compatible with the OpenAI REST API. You want it to support structured outputs. You want it to provide an embedding endpoint that's compatible with the OpenAI REST API as well. And having that embedding model with at least an 8,000 token limit is recommended for the best performance. So with the settings aside, let's jump in and start describing kind of that test scenario we want in plain language. So using the service definition, please create a test scenario that adds 2 items to the cart, submits the order, and then verifies that the order was placed. Okay. And so now the orchestrator agent is going and talking to a specialized agent for test creation. And that agent is suggesting the following steps, right? So 2 post requests to the cart items resource. And so adding items to the cart. Then we've got submitting the order, post requests to the orders resource, and then get orders. But, this can be conversational, right? Maybe I want to change what it's suggesting here and say, for the last step, can you make it use the order number from step 3 to verify the order was created? And so instead of just getting all orders, maybe I want to use the resource where the order number is provided. All right, so here we go. It gives us a new suggestion, right? It's using that orders with order number in the request. This looks good. This is what I want. All right, so very handy to sort of work with it, chat with it on exactly what you want created. And we'll give our test a name, and we'll have our test created for us here. And the nice thing is, instead of having an LLM generate code that I'd have to then go review, this is in Parasoft SOAtest, so all the no-code goodies that you're used to make API testing easy are right there. So I don't have to have a coding background to have this LLM make me more productive with the API testing that I'm trying to accomplish. But we've just created a test so far, right? We also want some test data. So test was created. Great. Now can you parameterize the set of items added to your cart as well as the region? So use 2 item IDs randomly selected between 1 and 9, and 2 random quantities between 1 and 10. We also need 1 column for region, and that should be set to a specific value for all the rows. And also, please create 10 rows for me. And so I've given it some requirements I have around the test data. And if I was testing through the UI, often there may be an accompanying spreadsheet or CSV file, right? If I'm looping through a scenario. And similarly here, right? We want to loop through order creation, maybe with different combinations of items or quantities, different settings to make sure that the functionality of the system is working correctly in all cases. So I've got that data, looks good to me. And now it's creating a CSV file for us and also parameterizing our test with the data that it just generated. So if we jump back into this cart items payload, we can see item ID and quantity are there. Right, for the next cart items, it's the other rows, ID quantity 2. If I look at the create orders endpoint, we can see region was parameterized for me. And I didn't specify any requirements around parameterizing data for some of these other fields. I could have, but since I didn't, the AI decided, well, here's some reasonable data to include for these fields. So, if you wanted to add them to the data source, you could, but in this case, I've got at least some data to work with that's hard-coded. The last thing I want to point out, and those of you familiar with previous versions of SOAtest may recognize this, is the importance of handling dynamic data in a scenario like this. So when I create an order in the system, there's going to be a unique order number, right, every time I create an order. And if I'm going to be checking that that order exists, I can't just put that order number in my payload, or in my data source rather. Right? It has to come dynamically from that create order request we have in the previous test step. And so the AI also looks for these cases where there may be dynamic data and sets up what we call a JSON data bank to essentially extract that order number, right? Gives the XPath to locate it and parameterizes that dynamic data for us, so we get a running test kind of out of the box. So with that, let's go ahead and run this scenario. And if I jump to the demo app, we can see all these order toasters. So we can see a bunch of orders got created for us. If I look here, sure enough, 10 orders for the 10 rows that I asked for my test data, all the different items from those item IDs. And so we can see here that we took test requirements from plain language, right? How I'd interpret them if I was testing from a UI, and quickly translated them down to API scenario tests with the help of the AI assistant. So this accelerates the adoption, or should I say expansion, of API testing to include covering the end-to-end functional workflows that many teams cover with UI tests today, which can lead to challenges at scale, right? When you have hundreds or thousands of tests and short regression windows, testing end-to-end functionality through a UI is very difficult for a resource-constrained team to be able to do. And so with SOAtest AI Assistant, you now have an efficient workflow to achieve that end-to-end functional test coverage at the API layer. And this allows teams to confidently focus down that UI testing to those critical scenarios, right? Testing client-side logic, certifying different browsers, knowing that their end-to-end functionality is being thoroughly tested at the API layer. So that's what I had for you today, and I'll pass it back to Jamie.
Wilhelm, thank you so much for that demo. That was really exciting to see how easy and how quickly you were really able to go from just putting in that command prompt and that surface definition to then getting a fully parameterized API test with the test data. It was pretty neat. Mm-hmm. Now, next I want to talk a little bit more about kind of traditional codeless tools, because we've had codeless, scriptless API testing tools in the market for a long time now. So where do you see the AI really providing more value than the tools that are traditionally out there today?
Mm-hmm. So when I think about the benefits of codeless tools, it really comes down to making it easier for less technical users to be able to accomplish technical tasks. And I see AI accelerating that democratization further, really allowing natural language to be a key interface for being able to accomplish these tasks that are traditionally done through a user interface.
Yeah, that AI assistant, it's really helping the tester to increase their efficiency, their productivity, and really just lends this factor of ease of use at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. We recently met with Forrester, an industry analyst, and they were reporting to us that API testing is a growing trend, but only 39% of teams are still doing API testing today. So to me, it's a sign that the market is expecting more from its tooling, right, to get more of that adoption across the industry. And the challenge with having AI produce code is that testers still are going to have to review that code, understand it, make sure it's doing what they want. And that, again, that can be a barrier for our less technical testers that have the domain knowledge, but they may not have that coding background. And so having an AI assistant that will produce API tests in that codeless tool gives the opportunity for these less technical testers to benefit from those productivity gains from AI, similar to how developers are today.
Yep, I can see it. It's both on the adoption, say you're a new team that you're trying to move from manual testing, or you're trying to move from a concentration in web UI testing to test that API layer. This streamlines the adoption, makes it a lot just easier to do that adoption. But then also, if you're already a mature team, you're trying to scale your API testing, this also has a huge benefit.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the benefit. I want to talk a little bit about the speed of test creation, as well as the quality of the tests that are being generated. How has that been impacted by Agentic AI?
So personally speaking, I started gravitating more and more towards using that AI assistant when I'm looking to create tests for a new API. And I can still build everything by hand through the user interface, but that conversational nature of the assistant asking me, is this what you want? And then me clarifying and having it not only build out those test scenarios, but also give me the test data that I'm looking for has really been kind of a speed up for me. So I've been noticing it in my own internal usage, and I think a lot of other users are going to be really excited to use it too.
Yeah, definitely. Even with those codeless tools, for instance, like say you're building out a full end-to-end test scenario, there's still some manual configuration that you have to do. So this is kind of giving you a jump start. The AI is doing a lot of that work already for you, really letting you just focus on what is that business logic that you're looking to validate.
Yep.
So we've talked a little bit about how Agentic AI and API testing is impacting the individual tester. But let's now kind of switch to a broader concept. So how is it impacting the QA team workflow overall? What benefits does it bring to the team?
So it's going to help QA keep up. I think in the age of AI, we're going to see more code that needs to be tested, not less. And with the productivity gains that development is getting through AI, that's leading to pressure for QA teams to do more work. And testers are going to benefit from AI doing more and more of that grunt work, where QA is going to start acting more as overseers and critical checkpoints in the QA process.
And this is really a force multiplier at the end of the day. You're not really replacing a person, because you still do need to have people in place that understand the APIs, that understand what's happening under the hood of the application. You need those people there. But when it comes down to accelerating test creation, being able to increase your test coverage, your API coverage, all of that gets benefited with this kind of technique.
Yeah.
So we saw that really cool demo, Wilhelm, of how AI can help testers to translate their business requirements into API scenario tests. Now I'd like you to take out your crystal ball, give it a little dust off. What other opportunities do you see AI being implemented to help on the testing level?
Sure. So from an API testing perspective, I think one obvious next step is AI assertions and AI data extractions. Another complexity with API testing really comes from grappling with those response payloads. And Parasoft SOAtest has these user-friendly tooling to make it easy to deal with doing validation or extraction of response payloads. But it can be a pain when the documents are large, or when you have some more complex logic to factor in. And the truth is, XPath can be challenging for testers to master.
Yeah.
So a natural language prompt of what data you want to extract or to validate would make it that much easier for testers to automate these API tests that they're looking to run.
That is pretty impressive as well as exciting. So is this something we can expect to see in SOAtest anytime soon? Are you able to share?
Yeah, that's right. The developers are working on these features now, and looking in on those sprint reviews. It looks really promising, really exciting. What the flexibility that I think it brings. So I think it's gonna be quite exciting once we unveil that later.
Definitely. And this will probably be unveiled, I would say, in our fall releases. That's coming right around the corner. Stay tuned, because we'll probably be sitting down and I'll be talking to you a little bit more about it then and showing you guys what that looks like. So now at this point, I think we're ready to turn to our Q&A. All right, everybody. We do have some questions we see already in the Q&A box. So if you have not yet popped your questions in, please be sure to do so. Let's start digging in. So the first question I think that would be a good one to address is what is meant by the embedded model? Wilhelm, you mentioned the embedded LLM model. Can you give us a little bit more specification on that and clarity?
Yeah, sure. So an embedding model, it's a type of machine learning model that converts raw data into a numerical representation called an embedding. And we use it to vectorize the SOAtest documentation, so the LLM has that at its disposal when it's answering questions about how to use the product. And so what I showed in the demo was more, creating test data, but you can also just chat with the LLM about, anything related to what SOAtest can do, and the LLM will have all the documentation kind of in its memory, so it knows how to answer questions about the product specifically.
And then the next question I see here is, how secure is the AI feature? Oh, this is a good one. They're asking, does it send data to the cloud or is it on-prem?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you're using OpenAI, for example, then it's sending your service definition and your prompt over to OpenAI, just like when you're chatting with ChatGPT. So if your company has certain policies about which AI providers you can use or not use, that's something you want to factor in. But like I said in the demo, you can also connect it to an on-prem LLM, which I've seen some people really get excited about, because then, right, it's all kind of within their network. And so that's also an option for you.
This tool has definitely been built with a lot of flexibility in mind when it comes down to your choice of LLM provider. All right, and then we have this one. Does it work with only APIs or with message streaming like Kafka? It's a good one as well.
So at this time, it works with REST APIs. SOAtest does have support for Kafka messaging. So we have many customers that test their Kafka systems using SOAtest, but we're still kind of working aggressively on the roadmap. So that's a capability that's not there yet.
And this is a good time to bring up, if you would like to see a demo of what we can do, for instance, for message streaming with Kafka, I would highly recommend requesting a demo with us. We would pretty much have a discussion around what your testing requirements are, and then provide a customized demonstration to you and your team so you can see the tool in action. Let's see. Got lots of questions coming in. So how does it work for multi-step scenarios that involve stateful or dependent requests? That's a good one as well.
So in the demo, I showed an example of this as well, right, with that dynamic order number.
So one of the things the AI does while it's kind of processing those multiple steps to create the scenario is it's looking for that dynamic data. So if you have some order number in some response, in, let's say test step 3, and then it sees that there's a request parameter further down the chain with that same order number, then it will extract it and parameterize it appropriately so that the test makes sense with that dynamic data.
Mm-hmm. And then we have a couple more questions, it looks like, around the LLMs. This attendee, he says, my question is about the options of GPT model available for the user to prompt. Can we configure custom models to configure?
Yes. So in the demo, I used OpenAI GPT-4.1. I've also used GPT-4o. I've played around with Google Gemini as well. But there is an option to connect it to kind of a custom model, right? It doesn't have to be OpenAI or Azure OpenAI. You can bring your own model, so to speak, and connect it to SOAtest.
Mm-hmm. So I think you already answered a little bit of this. Is the LLM shown in the demo open source? You kind of addressed that a little already, but can we use it for POC? Is there a question?
Certainly. Yeah, we have companies reaching out to us to try it out, see how it works for them. And yeah, we'd love for you to contact us and we can work through getting you set up for a POC to try it out. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, the best way to set up a POC is reach on out to us following that demo request form. Again, our team members will reach out to you, have a discussion, talk about your timelines and things like that, and help you get set up as far as for showing your team a demo on how it works, and then also setting you up for a POC. Can it work with multiple Swagger API URLs at the same time to build an end-to-end test?
That's a great question. Actually, that's something that we got exposed to as an interesting thing to support recently. And the good news is that is on our roadmap for the next release. So in addition to AI assertions and data extractions, that's another enhancement that's coming. So great question. Yes, that will be coming soon.
Have a couple questions. Is this only integrated with SOAtest, or can it be integrated with any other API testing tools? How can we add more context to the LLMs? And is it, or can it be integrated to APIM, ADO, Jira, etc.? Couple questions for you at once.
Yeah. So with SOAtest, it's sort of a specific integration between SOAtest itself and an external LLM provider like OpenAI or Gemini. So we're not creating our own LLM to integrate with other tools. We're sort of taking our tool and integrating with the popular LLM providers that are out there. Now, as far as the other question, kind of hooking up with ADO or Jira, for example, SOAtest already has integrations with these systems. So, for example, if you want requirements traceability between a test that you've created and a requirement in Jira, or if you want to run it in your CI/CD pipelines from an automation perspective, all those capabilities are already built into SOAtest. So, in a sense, we do have these integrations with SOAtest and those other systems.
And again, reach on out to us for a demonstration or a POC. We can definitely help you to look a little bit deeper into that, see what our Jira integration actually looks like. All right, it looks like we have enough time for maybe one more question here. Does the assistant align test generation with business requirements? It's another good one.
Yeah, and I think that's the main driver for working with the AI assistant is being able to translate those business requirements you have, right? What is the system, supposed to do, and using that to construct API tests that sort of fit to test the requirement that you have in mind. So as we saw in the prompt, I put in what I want that flow to be, and it built out the test for me.
All right, I do see we have other questions in the Q&A box, but we are starting to run out of time. So if your question has not been addressed, we will follow up with you via email just to make sure that you have all your questions addressed. And of course, you're always welcome to reach back out to us if you do have any additional follow-up questions. One thing I did want to point out before we end today is this is just one of Parasoft's AI capabilities. Parasoft supports testing across the entirety of the SDLC, and we have integrated AI, both our own proprietary AI frameworks as well as LLM models, into many of our solutions across our platform. So everything from static analysis, unit test generation and execution, API testing, of course, as you saw today, UI testing with Selenium, and even regression testing with test impact analysis. On the API testing side, we actually do have other types of AI that are proprietary to us that allow you to generate API test cases from traffic files, so API recorded traffic. This is another great way for you to essentially go from manual testing or web UI testing to API testing very easily. So if anyone's interested in that, feel free to reach on out to us. We'd be happy to show you a demonstration as well. All right, we've got one more question here that I do want to address. They just want a little bit more clarity, and maybe you can just wrap this up for us, Wilhelm. They wanted to have you explain a little bit more about how SOAtest is integrated with the OpenAI LM. Can you just walk us through a little bit more how you integrate?
Yeah, so OpenAI has a REST API for chat completions endpoint. So what we do is we take the prompt that you put into the chat box, we take that service definition that you provide for your API, and we send that over kind of with our own prompting on top, so that whatever OpenAI returns back to us is in a format that we're expecting. And then SOAtest takes those responses in and right, starts acting on them, building the test or creating the test data, or maybe just answering general product questions right from the documentation.
That's another good point. So the AI assistant can also be used just to provide in-tool guidance. If you're not sure how to do something, you can always ask the AI assistant for guidance on how you do something, and it will look at our technical documentation. It'll provide you over some instructions to help you get started. So when it comes down to tool adoption, learning how to use it, onboarding new members, things like that of your team, it really does help you to streamline in that regard as well. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for your time today. We really appreciate it. Again, please feel free to reach on out to us on our website. You can fill out that demo request form. You can put in the notes, hey, I just want to have a discussion about API testing in general. We'll hop on the line with you and have a little chat, get your questions answered. And of course, that's a great way to get started if you want to see a more complete demo of SOAtest API testing abilities, as well as its other AI features, or if you'd like to start talking about how to kick off a POC. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Wilhelm, you want to say anything before we leave?
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for attending, and we look forward to talking with you soon.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.